Alexander III of Macedon, known to history as Alexander the Great, rose to power at 20, built an empire by 30, and was gone by 32. His campaigns reshaped the ancient world. His name became legend. Yet one chapter of his story remains untold. What became of him after death? Ancient sources describe his body as a relic of divine power, paraded through cities and fought over by his generals. They say it was laid to rest in Alexandria, where it drew pilgrims and emperors for centuries. And then it vanished. No grave has been found, no remains identified, no clear record of where they went. For over 2,000 years, scholars, explorers, and archaeologists have searched for answers. Theories place the tomb beneath modern Alexandria, hidden in forgotten catacombs, or lost far from the city entirely. Why does this matter? Because finding Alexander's resting place could illuminate the final, shadowed years of his legacy, and reveal how a man who conquered the known world could disappear from it so completely. This is the search for the lost tomb of Alexander the Great, a mystery that endures through time. In 323 BC, the world shook as Alexander the Great, the man who had conquered half the known world before the age of 33, suddenly died in the palace of Nebuchadnezzar II in Babylon. His death was as mysterious as his life was legendary. Some claimed it was a simple fever, perhaps malaria or typhoid. Others suspected poison, administered slowly, carefully, by political rivals who feared what he might do next. Theories abound even today, but one thing remains certain. His death left a power vacuum so vast it would shatter empires. Alexander wasn't just a king, he was a god in the eyes of many. A warrior, philosopher, tactician, and visionary, he had spread Hellenic culture from Greece to India. His mere presence could silence armies and inspire devotion across continents. But now, with no clear heir, his only son, Alexander IV, was unborn. The question of succession sparked chaos. And with chaos came ambition. Amidst the grief and confusion, one thing quickly became apparent. Alexander's body was no mere corpse. In the ancient world, the body of a divine ruler held tremendous symbolic power. Possession of it was tantamount to claiming divine right, not just to mourn him, but to inherit his legacy. His generals, known as the Diadochi, understood this. Each of them harbored dreams of empire, but whoever buried Alexander could proclaim themselves his true spiritual and political successor. So plans were made. A golden sarcophagus, fit for a demigod, was crafted. The body was embalmed in the Egyptian style, a nod to his status not just as a Greek king, but as a pharaoh of Egypt as well. A grand funeral procession was organized to transport the body back to Macedon, the land of his birth, where his royal lineage could be honored. But that journey never reached its intended destination, because someone else had other ideas. Someone who understood the political weight of a dead god king. That man was Ptolemy, one of Alexander's most trusted generals, and he was about to change history. As Alexander's lavish funeral procession slowly made its way from Babylon toward Macedon, it never stood a chance of completing the journey. Ptolemy, ambitious, cunning, and calculating, was already in motion. He saw an opportunity others had missed or dared not take. With swift and decisive action, he hijacked the procession, redirecting it south toward Egypt. It was a bold move. Some might say reckless, but in hindsight, it was genius. Ptolemy didn't just want power, he wanted legitimacy. He understood that ruling Egypt as one of Alexander's successors wouldn't be enough. He needed a divine stamp of approval, and what better endorsement than the possession of Alexander's body itself? Upon arrival in Memphis, Egypt's traditional capital, Ptolemy arranged a burial fit for a god. The body was interred with reverence and splendor, but this was no act of mourning. It was a statement, a declaration. Ptolemy wasn't just a general now. He was positioning himself as the true inheritor of Alexander's divine legacy. Over time, as Ptolemy solidified his rule, and the city of Alexandria, founded by Alexander himself, grew into a cultural and political powerhouse. The tomb was relocated there. Alexandria wasn't just another city. It was the gleaming symbol of Hellenistic ambition, a beacon of learning and empire. And what better place to house the most prized relic of that era? But this tomb wasn't just a resting place. It was a throne of power. To stand beside the tomb of Alexander was to draw from his mythos. It became a political pilgrimage. Generals, kings, and emperors made their way to Alexandria to pay their respects and to be seen doing so. Among them, Julius Caesar, who wept in awe at Alexander's legacy, and Augustus, who reportedly gazed upon the preserved body himself. In the ancient world, appearances mattered just as much as actions. To be publicly linked with Alexander was to wrap oneself in the aura of conquest, divinity, and destiny. His corpse was no longer just a symbol, it was a weapon in the struggle for legitimacy, and Ptolemy had wielded it flawlessly. By seizing Alexander's body, he not only carved out his own kingdom, founding the Ptolemaic dynasty that would rule Egypt for centuries, culminating with Cleopatra, but also ensured that Egypt became the spiritual heart of Alexander's empire. The man who once rode into Egypt as a conqueror now lay enshrined in its soil, used in death as he had been revered in life. For centuries, Alexander's tomb was more than a historical site. It was a magnet for emperors, conquerors, and kings, a place where the divine legacy of a mortal man still pulsed through marble and gold. Historical records, though fragmented by time, leave no doubt. The tomb existed, and it was magnificent. Ancient writers spoke of a structure of unparalleled grandeur, befitting a man who had declared himself the son of Zeus Ammon. Housed in Alexandria, the crown jewel of the Hellenistic world, it became a sacred stop for the most powerful men in history. Julius Caesar, during his time in Egypt, is said to have made a pilgrimage to the tomb. Standing before the body of the man he idolized, Caesar reportedly wept, not just out of reverence, but from a realization he had yet to match Alexander's feats, even though he was older than Alexander had been at his death. Augustus, Caesar's adopted son and the first Roman emperor, also made the journey. When he visited, he reportedly offered a golden crown and flowers, placing them gently upon Alexander's embalmed form. The encounter left such an impression that he refused to see the bodies of the Ptolemies, saying he had come to see a king, not a line of rulers who lived in his shadow. The legend of the tomb only grew with each imperial visitor. Caligula, ever the eccentric, is said to have taken Alexander's breastplate as a personal trophy, a stunning act of both reverence and vanity. It wasn't just homage, it was the claim of a madman trying to steal a piece of divinity for himself. By the time of Septimius Severus in the 3rd century AD, the tomb had already been plundered so often that the emperor ordered it sealed off, desperate to preserve what remained of the sacred site. His son Caracalla, who believed himself a reincarnation of Alexander, later visited and left behind a trail of gifts and symbols, continuing the tradition of Roman rulers linking themselves to the Macedonian icon. But slowly over time, the tomb faded from the record. One day it was there, drawing pilgrims and power-hungry emperors. And then, mysteriously, it wasn't. The once glorious shrine vanished from maps, from chronicles, from memory. And as the centuries marched forward, so too did confusion and speculation. How could something so important simply disappear? That question continues to haunt historians to this day. The disappearance of Alexander's tomb remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of the ancient world. For something once so revered, so visited, and so historically documented, its vanishing acts like a historical black hole, sucking in facts, theories, and legends, leaving only questions behind. So what could have happened? One of the most widely accepted explanations involves natural disaster. Alexandria, perched on Egypt's Mediterranean coast, has endured numerous earthquakes, tsunamis, and rising sea levels over the centuries. It's entirely possible that Alexander's tomb, like many other ancient structures, was buried beneath layers of silt, rubble, or even submerged beneath the harbor as the coastline shifted. Archaeologists have already uncovered parts of ancient Alexandria underwater. Could the tomb lie hidden beneath the sea? Then there's the theory of destruction during war and conquest. Alexandria was no stranger to violence. Fires, invasions, and religious turmoil plagued the city from the Roman era through the Byzantine and Islamic periods. The tomb may have fallen victim to iconoclasts or looters. A symbolic relic of paganism, it could have been defaced or destroyed during a shift in power, seen not as a shrine, but as a threat. Another possibility, reburial. Some scholars believe that the body of Alexander was secretly moved, perhaps even taken back to Macedon, his homeland. If the political climate in Alexandria became hostile, or if there was a risk of desecration, it's possible that caretakers spirited the remains away, choosing quiet reverence over public spectacle. This theory is compelling, especially given the sacred nature of the body and the risk it carried in volatile times. And yet, despite the clues, none of these theories can be proven. There is no definitive record, no final eyewitness account, no archaeological consensus. The irony is striking. A man whose very name reshaped continents, whose life was chronicled by poets, historians, and philosophers, now lies somewhere unknown. For centuries, men walked miles just to stand in the shadow of his tomb. Today, we can't even find the shadow. To the ancient world, Alexander wasn't just a man. He was myth made flesh, a living demigod. In Egypt, he was worshipped as a pharaoh, divine by blood, chosen by the gods, the earthly vessel of Horus himself. To the Greeks, he wasn't merely royalty. He was the son of Zeus Ammon, a hybrid deity worshipped across cultures. His divinity wasn't questioned, it was expected. And when he died, his followers ensured his body was treated accordingly. Ancient sources claimed his corpse showed no signs of decay. Some believed his remains were immersed in white lead. Others swore he had been preserved in honey, sealed in a golden sarcophagus that glistened like a relic of Olympus. The idea was simple. This was not a corpse. This was proof of immortality. His tomb, then, was never meant to be just a resting place. It was a shrine, a portal between the human and the divine, a monument carved in stone to whisper for generations to come. He was not like other men. For centuries, it stood as evidence that a mortal could transcend fate, that through conquest, culture, and charisma, one man could rise above kings and gods alike. So when that tomb disappeared, it wasn't just a physical absence, it was a cosmic silence, a link to the divine, severed, a bridge between history and legend, erased. Without the tomb, we lost more than a body. We lost a symbol of what humanity once believed it could become. And perhaps in losing it, we lost part of that belief too. In the modern age, a new kind of warrior took up the search, not with swords or crowns, but with shovels, satellite maps, and infrared scans. Archaeologists, historians, and adventurers have hunted Alexander's tomb for over a century. Their eyes have turned again and again to one city, Alexandria. But here lies the problem. Ancient Alexandria, the seat of his divine resting place, is buried. Not beneath sand or forest, beneath a thriving modern metropolis. High-rise apartments, roads, mosques, marketplaces, it's all built atop the ruins of the ancient world. Excavating here is not just difficult, it's nearly impossible. Permits are scarce. Buildings cannot be demolished for guesses. And so the work proceeds slowly, surgically. Teams dig beneath cellars, under churches, in forgotten catacombs and flooded tunnels. Each trench carved is an act of precision, risk, and faith. In places like the catacombs of Kom el Shakafa and the ruins of the Serapeum, tantalizing fragments have been unearthed. Inscriptions, statues, sarcophagi that hint at Hellenistic influence. Beneath the city's mosques and ancient Roman-era streets, there are whispers of chambers still untouched, hallways lost to time, but each clue raises more questions than it answers. For every promising corridor, there's a collapse. For every lead, a dead end. The body of a man who once spanned continents now lies somewhere beneath a city that can't afford to stop moving. Time, ironically, has become both the tomb's greatest enemy and closest ally. For a mystery this enduring, hope is a double-edged sword. Over the centuries, many have claimed to find the tomb of Alexander. Some swore they had seen it in visions. Others pointed to ruins with carved names and royal symbols. But time after time, the truth slipped through their fingers. In the 4th century AD, a Christian bishop claimed the tomb was destroyed during a purge of pagan monuments. To early Christians, Alexander represented not a prophet, but a pagan idol, a symbol of divine kingship incompatible with monotheism. Could the tomb have been targeted, desecrated, or wiped from history by zealots intent on erasing the past? Centuries later, in 1995, the world was electrified by Greek archaeologist Liana Suvaltsi. She claimed she had discovered the tomb at the Siwa oasis, near the Oracle of Ammon, where Alexander had once been declared the son of God. Her argument was compelling. This was where his divine identity had been forged. Why not end his journey there? But the Egyptian government rejected her findings. Bureaucracy tangled with nationalism. Political tensions soured the excavation. And so yet again, the trail went cold. More recently, sonar imaging and underwater archaeology have pointed to potential ruins beneath Alexandria's eastern harbor. Could the tomb have been swallowed by the sea during one of the city's ancient earthquakes? Columns, statues, and roads have been found, but not the sarcophagus. And until that moment comes, everything remains speculation. For now, we're not following a trail, we're chasing shadows. But still the question echoes, why does it matter? Why, after more than 2,000 years, are we still so desperate to find a tomb? A coffin? Bones and gold buried beneath layers of stone? Because Alexander was never just a conqueror, he was a story. He embodied ambition so vast it reshaped maps, so intense it frightened empires. He believed the world could be molded by sheer will, and then proved it. In doing so, he became something larger than a general, larger than a man. He became a mirror for our own potential. To find his tomb would be more than a historical victory. It would be a cultural reckoning, a moment of contact with the divine myth we've carried for centuries. An archaeological discovery on par with the tomb of Tutankhamun, perhaps even greater. We might uncover artifacts, writings, personal relics that give us new insight into the man behind the legend, or we might find nothing but a body, and still the world would stand still in awe. But maybe that's not the point. Maybe part of Alexander's greatness lies in the fact that he can't be pinned down, that he remains just out of reach, half truth, half legend, a ghost of empire, a riddle carved into the bones of history. Perhaps some myths are more powerful when they remain unsolved. And Alexander? He may be the greatest myth of all. The lost tomb of Alexander the Great isn't just a mystery, it's a reminder. A reminder that even the most powerful men to ever walk the earth can be reduced to whispers and shadows. That entire empires can crumble, yet one unanswered question can echo through the ages. Time may erode stone and silence stories, but legends? Legends endure. They slip through the cracks of history, daring us to chase them. And if one day we do find Alexander's tomb, if we unearth that final resting place, it won't just rewrite the history books, it will reignite the myth. Because finding his tomb isn't just about discovering a body, it's about discovering how history chooses what to remember and what to hide. So if you've enjoyed this deep dive into one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of our ancient past, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more journeys into the unknown. Because here, we don't just tell stories, we uncover them. And remember, the past is far from buried.